this seems to be a common problem now. What's the solution?
Well, Laura, first of all, can I say that our hearts and prayers, thoughts and prayers are with the poor folk in Queensland and New South Wales that are suffering right now, that there is government assistance there for them to help. There is the disaster recovery payments, those one-off payments of $1,000 per adult and $400 per child. Those payments are not means tested. They are widely available and are available immediately. And there's also a disaster recovery allowance payment. And that payment will go to people that cannot work because of the flood situation, to businesses, to farmers. And that's paid at the job seeker rate. So there is support out there now. There is also support that's coming from the Queensland Government in conjunction with the Commonwealth in the form of hardship payments. So there is support there for people now. That said, we know that there is a long tail to these sorts of disasters and that people will need support into the future.
Yeah, that long tail is the problem, isn't it? I mean, I was in Queensland 11 years ago. We were told that was a once-in-a-century flood, and here we are just 11 years on. In Lismore, they saw this back in 2017. What happens, Jane Hume, if you've got insurance companies that won't insure or people that just cannot afford flood insurance? I mean, Tasha's example was that they wanted $200,000 a year to insure her for floods. Her company doesn't even make that much.
Yes, the idea of insurance premiums going up in Queensland in flood-prone areas has been an ongoing problem. It's quite a complex one. It's part of its planning laws, local planning laws that allow people to build and develop in flood-prone areas. Part of it is the insurance companies themselves vacating that space because it's too great a risk. I know that my colleague Michael Suka has been working specifically on northern Queensland flood-prone areas and a reinsurance pool there that insurers can draw upon to make sure that all Australians, no matter where they live and no matter where their business operates, can access affordable insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it's not affordable for so many. We heard also, residents in areas like Woodburn, which is underwater right now, their flood insurance was $20,000 a year. For that household, it was too much. So does your government have any long-term ideas here? Because if these people have to rebuild every 7 to 10 years, they're just not going to do it. They're going to move somewhere else and these towns will die.
Well, we would hope that reinsurance pool will reactivate the insurance sector, particularly in places like Queensland, where this is an ongoing risk. But it really is a matter of working with states, with local governments, as well as with the Commonwealth, to make sure that the planning laws are in place, to ensure that people aren't building new dwellings, new businesses in these highly flood-prone areas. And that state governments also have emergency assistance in place, but also a long-term mitigation strategy. And it can't simply be one level of government that works toward this. It has to be all three levels of government, as well as the private sector and the insurance sector specifically.
The people on the south coast of New South Wales that were hit by bushfires 2 years ago are still waiting for homes. Their homes have not been rebuilt. For the people that are flood hit in the north of the state now, is that an ominous warning? Are they going to have to wait a couple of years for their homes to be rebuilt as well?
What I can say is that the disaster recovery payments that have come out of the disaster recovery arrangements from this government have paid out the equivalent of around $12 billion over the last decade in response to those who have been affected by whatever disaster it may well be, whether it be floods or whether it be fires. There would be lots of reasons why people might not yet have rebuilt. Some of them might be very personal, some of them might be commercial. But I don't think that we can compare one disaster like a bushfire with another disaster like a flood. This is part of the Australian experience, sadly. The good news is the Morrison government stands with and alongside all of those who are suffering right now, who are seeing their lives and livelihoods literally washed away in front of their eyes. We've sent ADF personnel to help. We've got helicopters in the sky. We've got emergency services there on the ground doing what needs to be done. there's still a long way to go before we can truly assess the damage that this flood has inflicted on Queensland and northern New South Wales.